Scrum is a highly effective engine for a single, focused team. When you have 5 to 10 people building one distinct product, the framework keeps them fast, lean, and perfectly in sync. But the equation changes when a company grows. Imagine expanding from one team to 50 independent Scrum teams, all trying to build interconnected pieces of the exact same banking platform at the same time. Here is what happens. Team A is ready to ship a critical payment feature, but they are completely blocked. Why? Because Team B, who controls the authentication service, quietly pushed back the specific API update Team A needed. This chart shows where organizational complexity outgrows individual team agility. Down here in the bottom left, a few independent teams operate with high speed, but scaling to 50 teams and high dependencies turns that localized autonomy into a liability. Independent Scrum teams operating at this volume, without a specialized layer to connect them, will inevitably cause organizational gridlock. No one at the top actually knows what is being built, and the teams on the ground are constantly stepping on each other's toes. This specific gridlock is what the Scaled Agile Framework, or SAFe, was built to solve. It acts as a heavy logistics network for enterprise software delivery. There is a common misconception that adopting SAFe means firing your Scrum Masters and throwing away your current process. It does not. SAFe does not replace Scrum at the team level. Developers still operate inside standard Scrum loops. SAFe simply wraps around those existing teams. Once in place, it forces them to synchronize. Every team is aligned to a shared mission, and their timelines are strictly locked together. This is the central trade-off you have to accept. By adopting SAFe, you are intentionally sacrificing the rapid, localized autonomy of an individual Scrum team to gain the synchronized, predictable alignment necessary to ship massive software projects. To understand the actual scale of this change, we have to look at the mechanical differences between the two frameworks. This matrix shows where administrative overhead is introduced. First, the unit of scale jumps from 10 people in Scrum to 125 in SAFe. Next, planning expands from 2-week sprints to 12-week program increments. Finally, Scrum's 3 roles multiply into 20 defined positions. Transitioning to SAFe is not a minor process adjustment. It is a massive structural shift away from localized simplicity, requiring a serious commitment to enterprise-grade management. The core operating unit managing all of these people is called the Agile Release Train, or ART. This virtual organization binds those 50 to 125 people into a single, unified delivery vehicle. The train metaphor is intentional. A train leaves the station on a strict, fixed schedule, regardless of whether every passenger is in their seat. The individual teams must sync their work to the train's master schedule. The train does not wait for them. That master schedule is the program increment. Inside that 8 to 12-week window, teams execute 4 to 6 development sprints, intentionally leaving the final sprint open strictly for innovation, planning, and fixing bugs. At the end of the program increment, all the interconnected pieces built by individual teams are combined and delivered as a single, fully functioning increment of the product. The trade-off is clear. The enterprise gains the extreme reliability of a train schedule, but individual teams lose the freedom to pivot their goals or change deadlines in the middle of a quarter. To keep that train on the tracks, SAFe requires a massive operational investment called PI planning. It is a mandatory 2-day, all-hands event held every few months. Day 1 is about alignment. Executives brief the business context. Architects lay out technical vision, and teams break into rooms to draft their quarterly commitments. Day 2 is about reality. Teams map out specific risks, resolve cross-team blockers face-to-face, and finalize their exact objectives. Finally, they hold a definitive vote on whether they actually believe the final plan is achievable. This board shows the single most valuable artifact from those 2 days, the program board. It visually maps out every tangled dependency between the teams before a single line of code is written. Halting production to put 100 people in a room for 2 days carries a massive monetary cost, but it serves as an essential insurance policy. It is drastically cheaper than discovering a multi-million-dollar architectural blocker in the middle of a development sprint. Managing that board requires a heavy layer of new leadership roles. At the program level, a product manager prioritizes the backlog for the entire train, and a system architect enforces the technical vision. The most critical addition is the release train engineer. Think of them as a macro-level Scrum Master. Their entire job is to ruthlessly clear roadblocks and facilitate communication for the 125 people on the train. But adding layers of management introduces a severe risk. If you implement the strict safe hierarchy without genuinely adopting the collaborative values of Agile, the system breaks. The Agile community calls this failure mode Wagile, waterfall in Agile clothing. It happens when the new safe roles act as traditional top-down middle managers, generating endless documentation and approval gates that completely stall the developers. The administrative burden of safe pays off if and only if leadership uses these new roles to empower teams and clear blockers. If the roles are used to micromanage, the ROI is entirely negative. Looking at a 20-role rulebook is intimidating, but the framework is highly modular. You do not have to adopt the entire system to get the benefits. This pyramid shows the 4 specific configurations of SAFE, designed to scale with your company. Almost every organization should start right here at the bottom, with Essential SAFE. It provides the bare foundation needed to run a single Agile release train and introduces only the absolute necessary roles. The top tier, Full SAFE, is a highly complex configuration. It is strictly reserved for massive corporate enterprises, managing thousands of developers across completely different business portfolios. Mid-market companies that try to implement anything larger than Essential SAFE on day one will reliably suffocate their teams in administrative overhead. So, should you adopt SAFE? The decision comes down to a strict calculation of your headcount and the severity of your cross-team dependencies. This flowchart shows the practical reality. If you have fewer than 50 developers, stick to standard Scrum. The logistical overhead of SAFE will slow you down. If you have over 50 developers and your teams are constantly blocking each other due to deep technical dependencies, it is time to adopt Essential SAFE. And if you are managing thousands of developers working across multiple massive portfolios, you are the exact target market for Full SAFE. A stark warning for smaller tech teams. If you have fewer than 50 developers and you are already drowning in coordination issues, buying an expensive management framework will not fix your problem. You need to fix your underlying software architecture to untangle those dependencies first. SAFE succeeds brilliantly when it brings necessary alignment to autonomous teams. It fails completely when executives use it to buy the illusion of control. Ensure you are solving a logistics problem, not a culture problem.